Hello friends, it's Chromatic Sauce and welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be watching me tattoo this bee with a little sun at the top. I always love doing, first of all, I love bees. I don't know if you know. I have the most tattoos of bees. Well, no, not like ever in the world. Like, of all my tattoos, the most common theme is bees. That is a more accurate statement. But so, I love bees. I love every chance I get to tattoo bees. Whether a fine line like bee with like a sun like this, or like bees going towards flowers, anything like that. Or maybe like a bee is like a larger, more focal point, part of like a bigger tattoo. Any of that. I love it. Anyway, this one is just a fine line, black and gray bee tattoo. I don't know how many times I have to say bee tattoo. Anyway, this one is part of my first batch of editing down my videos. Now, my full-length versions of all my tattoos, if you don't know, I post full-length versions where it's basically completely unedited besides like breaks where I'm not in frame for a long amount of time, like no tattoo is happening. That's all that gets cut out. It's kind of like everything thrown in, all the footage that I have anyway. Sometimes I miss a clip or the camera times out, whatever. But all the footage I have, it's full length, full speed. But recently I just realized that I should probably, for these talk-throughs, instead of just fast forwarding it 800%, which is what I've been struggling, like what's missing, I can just fast forward it a little bit, like just a little bit, so it's still pretty close to real-time speed, but we can see the whole process faster, and I cut out everything that's not in focus, and all the parts where my head blocks it. This one was especially hard to edit, because I don't think I put the camera in a very good angle, but I think the worst it gets from my edited version is like maybe the edge of my hair, like, but the tattoo's in focus like through my hair. But this one was challenging. I did not put the camera in a very good spot. I swear, like usually, like I'm sure you guys know, usually my ear, if you've seen any of my videos, you should watch some of my videos. Anyway, usually my like left ear will get in focus every once in a while I'm doing a tattoo, because I'm filming like from this angle, at least from the left of me, wherever I have to put the camera. I gotta figure out a better spot. Slightly better, because I'm right-handed, so my right hand's gonna block the tattoo if I put it from this angle, so I can't really do it from this angle. But so I just had it too far behind me, because when I was filming this tattoo, if you watch the full-length version, you'll see, but like usually my left ear will sometimes get in focus, and then it's like, well, at least I got all this shiny jewelry. This one was so bad that there was a point where my whole left ear was in focus for like part of it. I'm like, dang, I really had this all the way, I had it all the way too far. But I think I got some good clips out of it, so I feel like it's still worth watching, especially if you like bees, and then we can just chat. Anyway. But let's get on into the video, because I've been talking forever. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit share. It really helps me out. Comment, do you have a bee tattoo, or would you get a bee tattoo? We could be like twins. I'd love to do it for you. Anyway, so what I did there was I just got a little green soap on some paper towel just to lighten up the stencil, because especially when doing fine line tattoos like this, I just cannot stand like how dark the like spirit stencil paper is sometimes. Now sometimes it doesn't matter too much, but even I feel like with bolder lines, I'm like, sometimes the stencil, like the transfer paper, like sometimes that pigment is just so dark. Sometimes that pigment is just so dark that it's almost as dark as black, so it's kind of hard to see if the black ink that you're putting in the skin is actually fully in there. And especially when I do fine line tattoos, I'm doing a little bit more like sketching the ink into the skin instead of like fully pulling like super long lines, like and even if I am pulling a long line, it's like my machine's slow, like it's a little bit more of like a stippling in my head. The way I'm applying it, it's a lighter application. I'm gonna go over a little bit more, so I always just want to wipe off that really dark layer at the start. That way I can see what I'm doing, because I hate not being able to see through the stencil. And then also sometimes when you're done, the stencil doesn't really want to come off, so I feel like getting it sort of half off at the beginning, because I never struggle, knock on wood, I never struggle usually recently with like losing a stencil or like chasing the stencil, which is like, in my experience, I would be like, I would feel like I'm chasing the stencil the whole time because it just keeps fading. But that doesn't tend to happen to me anymore. Usually I'll try to shave people and wipe people multiple times with rubbing alcohol. That way any lotions come off. Sometimes it'll usually be like clients' dead skin cells or something, like, and I'll be honest, I don't always exfoliate very, very well. But, so not to fault anyone, but sometimes people will not have exfoliated very well, so when you're doing the tattoo and you're wiping with the paper towel or like even just patting, because like a lot of times if you see the process here, I mostly just pat. I do like little wipes sometimes. It depends on like if it gets a little dirty, but especially at the beginning I try to just pat. But so like sometimes very quickly, I guess the patting that I do now is why I don't tend to have issues with losing stencils as much anymore. But I used to really struggle because every time you wipe, that's the exfoliation that maybe your client hasn't done there. So if you're ever going to get a tattoo in the future, don't exfoliate maybe the night before, especially if you don't usually exfoliate. But maybe like try to be hydrated like in the couple weeks leading up to the tattoo, and if you can, like the week before, just make sure you're a little exfoliated, especially for like rough spots like the knees or the elbow. Like get in there, get the extra skin off. It'll make getting the ink in there easier for your tattoo artist. But anyway, so, and like I said, I'm not an expert in exfoliation. Like I'm not faulting anyone, but sometimes when you do a tattoo, sometimes when you do a tattoo, there is like a little bit of like peeling of the skin, and it's like, if you're not careful with your stencil, you can wipe it right off. But anyway, like I was saying, where I segued what did I even say before? Segued into dead skin cells. I don't typically have an issue with like losing my stencil anymore, mostly because I really learned the best way to absorb the ink, especially black ink. Color ink doesn't absorb as good. The pigments are too big. Black ink is more like water in the way that if there's enough like ointment on the skin, then once you put the ink on, if you pat it with the paper towel and just hold it for a sec, it absorbs all of it like it would with water. It might leave a little stain sometimes, but I've really been liking doing that. But so I'll just wipe the whole tattoo with green soap, lighten it up. I'm not scared about losing my stencil. If anything, I'm happy that the stencil's already starting to lighten up, so like later I don't have to like try really hard to get rid of the stencil, which a lot of times can happen with people if you're making your stencil last too long. But yeah, so I lined basically the whole thing, like the bee itself, with a bug pin 5-round liner. That's basically all the lines that you've seen so far besides the sun I did with a bug pin 5-round liner with just straight black. And then I did the little like accents to like start the shading for the black part of the bee. I didn't want to do this one too crazy dark. I tend to go a little bit lighter because I know the tattoo is going to develop. I'd rather go darker in like a touch up than go too dark too fast. A lot of times when you want like fine line tattoos, it's because you don't want really heavy, really dark tattoos. So I believe I'm listening to my clients, and I'm just sort of like feeling out how I like to do it every time. I feel like I've definitely developed a little bit more of a style when it comes to this like fine line black and gray kind of style. So I did the 5-round liner, bug pin 5-round liner for the black outline of the bee. Then for the sun, what you saw, I got my Bug Pen 3 round liner, and I only used a medium shade. Now, this is, I mainly had the idea for, first of all, this was her birthday tattoo, so everyone say happy birthday to her. You could just say client with B tattoo. I don't know if I should share people's names. I'm really awkward. I'm not really, anyway, say happy birthday to my client. Anyway, oh, also I forgot, no talking smack about my clients or I'll delete those comments. I try to say that for every video. Good talk smack about me, but I mostly will appreciate and accept constructive criticism only. Otherwise, you're just bullying, and that's not cool. Anyway, so last year, this tattoo was done on her birthday. So she's actually already not her birthday anymore, but we're celebrating her birthday by watching this tattoo. Last year on her birthday, she got a moth tattoo in a similar placement on her other arm, and she wanted like twinkly stars and a moon, and I suggested back then, instead of doing a black outline for them, because it was pretty small, like especially those really teeny stars. I don't always love doing them with black ink because as the tattoo blurs over time, basically it doesn't always look the best, so I just pitched the idea of doing like a wash line for those. That way they would be lighter, and then the moth would really stand out. And then I always say if it heals different than you expect, we could touch it up, we could darken up the stars. And I feel like after a year healed, I'll show you the picture that I have. It healed up pretty good. You can still see the stars and the moon. Maybe in the future would need a touch up, but I'm not too mad at it right now. But so I also didn't want to do the sun with a bold black outline. I wanted to keep it in the same vibe because it's like the sun and the moon. I gather that these are kind of like going together, you know what I mean? So I was like, let me do the sun in also gray wash. So I got my Bug Pen 3 round liner with just a medium wash for the sun, and I lined the little dashes for the sun rays, and then I kind of just like cross hatched, like I stippled around the circle, and then I cross hatched, stippled. For when I do things like that, I always try to get saturation if I can. Now, sometimes with that stipple technique, you really have to work to build up the tone, even when you're doing black. So especially for the medium gray, I was like, I want this to be solid. Like when this heals, I want it to look like a circle. So you can't just leave it like a light dotting. And then black wouldn't have worked because the dots, it wouldn't have been as distinctive a shape. And I wanted to keep it kind of light so it would stand out versus the bee, because the bee has different tones going on. Anyway, so the sun has medium gray stippled and like layered up, and then I stippled and layered in a light gray wash. I usually use the Empire gray wash set, but that's not like a preference. That's just the only kind I've ever bought. So I'm open if you have suggestions for one that's better. If you like them, definitely let me know if you're a tattoo artist, if you have preferences. But so after that sun, then I went in to do my finer lines all around the bee. So the extra, like, what is that called in the wings? The like, it's not webbing. The lines, the patterns in the wings, I don't know the term for that. Definitely comment down below if you know the term. I'd like to know the term for that. But so I went in with a dark wash instead of black to do those finer lines on the inside of the wing. So the idea is it's not solid black, so me slowly stippling that in, it's probably gonna lighten up a little bit. So the outside lines of the wings are definitely gonna be distinctly black compared to the inside lines are gonna be distinctly, even if it's just slightly lighter, that's all I need. But I still make sure I stipple it up and build it up so it's like a solid line of that dark wash. And then I went around. I think the only other thing that was like outlined with that was the tops of the like bees. I was gonna say bees knees. The tops of the bees like legs. Then after that, I think I'm in the midst of doing it now. Oh my gosh, why did I say that so weird? I hopped in with just black again with my Bug Pen 3 round liner this time. I turned my machine down a little bit. Actually, since I was using the Bug Pen 3, I probably already had the machine down to where I wanted it, and I just stippled in the lines. Because I tend to put the machine pretty low when I do smaller lines like that to avoid blowouts and for consistency. That's the way I work anyway, so I don't know how other people work. But so the machine's pretty low, so then I just started stippling in with black, just on the black parts of the bee. I don't want necessarily, like I said, the bee to be too dark, but she said she wasn't opposed for it being dark in general, so I wasn't too afraid to go too dark. And like I said, I always know that the stippling will develop a little bit over time. In my experience, the way my tattoo application goes, I tend to notice that like even like 6 months later, like the way black ink blurs when it's stippled in the skin, it should develop a little bit. And like I said, always come back for a touch-up. But I stippled in black for the edges, and I'm not sure, I don't think, I might have given the legs a little pass of like, I don't remember, you would have saw the video. If I already did by now, it was probably a little bit of black, but like just lightly. I definitely didn't fully fill in the legs to be like solid. I figured they would end up lighter so that there would be like a little highlight in the middle, so I'm not mad about that. I always like to capture like a little bit more of a glow or like a difference, like a contrast. So I think after the black on the bee's body parts and like the head, I kept it a little bit light in the middle. You probably saw the way I shaded it. I kind of left a gap in the middle and then I overlaid that again. But I'm always like layering. I've talked about this in the past. Let me know if you want me to like cover that type of stuff in every video. I don't know. I don't always do like tutorial, like explaining type of videos, but sometimes I just can't help myself. Sometimes videos are explaining videos. Sometimes they're just for yapping. Mostly both, I guess. I just keep looking at the camera like a freak to make sure it's recording. It better be. But so after I did the black layer on the black parts of the bee, then I dipped my needle into the dark wash, and then I sort of layered out. I'm sort of trying to build it out. Now I still want to keep a highlight for the middle of the bee, so I didn't bring the dark wash all the way across like solid. I just wanted to like, I wanted to bring the black further in without like, I wasn't going to risk like darkening up the highlight in the middle. So we're going to make sure that's at least a step lighter. So I go in with dark. And then I don't think I did too much of the dark. I just did it to like sort of like keep an edge for those black lines on the bee. And just to give a little bit of darkness. So it would be a little bit darker than like the sun. Because then I went in with a medium tone lightly, just to darken up that dark without it being like just black and dark. Does that make sense? Darken up that dark. Too many words. But the medium tone I think is a good highlight for black. And then for the yellow part of the bee, which is just a skin break, that's the lightest part. We didn't do any white highlights, if you can see. We're on the back teen. But there wasn't any. Yeah, for the yellow parts of the bee, like I was saying, that's just a skin break. So the darkest parts of the yellow are going to be, I might have brushed in a little bit of dark just to get a little bit of shadow, like shading, because even white can be black in terms of shading. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. But so I might have done a little bit of dark just to like make sure it had that little touch of extra darkness. But then I built up the medium tone mostly for the sides of the like shadows of the yellow parts of the bee. That way the middle still had that nice like shine. It's not like a shiny bee, but I always like to give it a highlight. I just like how it looks. It's my jam. And I don't know, if you ever don't like it, then just let me know and I'll probably change it. But I figure if you like my tattoos, you probably like my style of doing it. But anyway, then I went in and I layered in just a little bit of medium tones in the wings. Try to give them that like layered effect in the way I was putting the shading. And then I went in with just a light wash. I don't want to go too light with it because you have to shade with the light tone enough so that it heals as like a tone in the skin. Otherwise, it'll just heal as nothing. So that's why I always tell my clients, let me know if it heals different than you expect. Like if all the shading in the wings heal up and it's so light that it's like nothing, I would probably like to know about that. So definitely, that's why I always say everything's going to heal up a little bit lighter. So expect that. But if it's lighter than you expect, let me know. We want to make sure it looks good. But I definitely like to play around with gray tones like that and gray washes, and it's been fun being able to see it come back like this moth, or like the moth that like this one's like the pair to. Yeah, basically, yeah. And you can also see in the corner, if you've been watching through the whole video, you probably noticed that little like spider web thing. It's actually like a little spider web heart I did a few months back that looks like it healed and has so far settled in very nicely. That's without any touch-ups, and I feel like the lines healed really good, really settled into like, I feel like every month I get better at tattoos, and like, you know, art is a thing that like ebbs and flows in your life a little bit, but I feel like I've definitely developed a technique that I'm happy about, and I'm definitely excited to be able to do tattoos like this and learn more about how they heal over time, like seeing pieces come back, and like how am I going to do this one different to make it a little bit better. I always want to make it better, but like, you know, match. I don't know. I'm so weird. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to comment down below. Let me know what you think. Would you ever get a bee tattoo? And don't forget to share this video. Don't forget to subscribe, because I'd love to have you as a subscriber. I don't have a name for subscribers. I don't have enough of them to name you guys. So let's work on that first. I don't know. I would need to come up with ideas for that. Okay, now I'm just talking about naming my YouTube subscribers when I literally don't even have 250 subscribers. So I think that's time to say bye for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you. See you in the next one. Bye. Okay, I gotta not kiss so much because I feel like people maybe do suspicious stuff with this footage.